Thank you so much, Kristin. That was so beautiful. Just what I needed today. And really, thank you so much for agreeing to answer some questions for us. So the first question I've got is, how does this fierce friend practice fit into the whole model of mindful self-compassion?
Yeah, so we're actually, for those of you who are interested, we're actually developing a secondary course that comes after mindful self-compassion, the basic course that focuses more on this fierce side of self-compassion. And the reason it's a secondary course is because really, in many ways, the foundation is the tender acceptance. Because if you don't accept yourself, if you feel unworthy, if you don't feel worthy even of kindness, you aren't going to feel worthy of protection either, right? And also, the fierce stuff can get into things like anger and really, stuff that's a little more challenging, a little more activating. So I think we really do need the foundation, the basis of the core self-compassion skills first. At least it's helpful. You don't have to, but I think it's helpful. So that there is some fierceness kind of sprinkled through the mindful self-compassion program, but we're going to make it much more explicit. Actually, Natalie, who's going to be talking to you later, and Laila, you as well, have been working on this, trying to develop a full 8-week course that's focused specifically on developing these skills.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you. So here's a question that's a little bit more in depth. So most women think about compassion as being tender and soft.
Yes.
And this is also, expectations of a lot of families, cultures, societies, right?
Yes.
Often they're imposed on us.
Yes.
And it's really where we're asked to be soft and kind and understanding, supportive, maybe even obedient at work, at home.
Yes.
However, that's limiting us, right?
Yes.
And it's really keeping us from fully and deeply being this person that we may be and getting our voices out. So how can self-compassion help us to really transcend some of these expectations?
Well, it's absolutely key, right? And so if this happens in every culture, some cultures more than others. And so I'm just going to say it. There's a reason gender role socialization socializes women to be this way. It's power inequality, right? So I'm just, you may not agree with me, but I'm just going to say it, right? We have to recognize where this comes from. Now, not saying that there isn't a tremendous beauty and value to this tenderness, this nurturing, right? The ability to raise our children, to do this with our friends, our loved ones, our partners. It's beautiful. It is essential, but it can't be the only energy. I talk about balance between yin and yang. So tenderness without fierceness can become complacent or subordinate, right? Also, but fierceness without tenderness, which I have to say is most males have been socialized to be, can be aggressive, right? It can be like, just exploitative as well. So we really need balance. So what to do about this? Okay, so you may agree with this, but what to do about it? Well, and this is an important question because I would like to say everyone just speak up and, protest and all that, but actually it may not be safe. The bottom line of self-compassion is safety, and we need to be wise about it. So if we're going to get a lot of backlash, we're going to lose our jobs, or we're going to, be cut off from our families, we don't want to just speak out in a way that's going to actually end up harming us. What we do need to do, though, however, is internally understand what's what. Okay, because so much of sexism is internalized. We go along with it. We believe it. We project it onto other women. So if we know internally that we have every right, that our needs count too, that we have the right to be treated with respect, that we do have this fierce, powerful energy, then, at least we start here, and then we can start to change things externally, in a wise way, right? So in some countries, so if you look at the Me Too movement, for years and years, I think maybe we just weren't ready to have it. And then for whatever reason, the cultural conditions shifted so that we could have the Me Too movement, and really powerful men were being brought down as women said, it's not okay. It can't happen anymore. No. And for whatever reason, the culture was in the right place. That could happen. And there may be other places where it couldn't. So again, I'm not saying, lose your job or have your family cut you off. That's not safe. And that's actually not self-compassionate. But yeah, so really starting with yourself, understanding that you have every single right to speak up, that your voice counts, that your voice matters, that your needs count, and then just doing what you can with wisdom. I mean, wisdom is a huge part of this. Doing what you can with wisdom to change the things you can. How you raise your daughters, how you raise your sons, if you're a parent, is one way you can try to affect small scale change if large scale change isn't possible. But I don't know, I think women around the world, we're in a new place. Partly, I think because we saw the success of the Me Too movement. I think things are changing. They may not change as quickly as we want. But what's really key is that we band together. If you look at the gender role socialization literature, women are even more powerful enforcers of the gender norms that women should be tender and not fierce than men are. Women are especially likely to dislike fierce, powerful women. Why? Because we've internalized this idea that, well, that's not what a real woman should be like. So a big part of it is women with other women trying to say, hey, this isn't right, it's not true, starting to change things kind of among women. And then I think if you look at all the big social movements, they come from women banding together. There's a reason we call it Me Too, Me Too, or Black Lives Matter, or any big social movement comes from solidarity with other people. So we aren't an isolated single individual. So I could go on and on, but those are some of my thoughts on it. It's a complex question. But the bottom line, I want to say one more thing. Another thing, this is actually what tender self-compassion gives you. People won't like you as much if you're fierce. I'm pretty fierce. And sometimes people don't like me for it. I'm just going to say it. It actually got me into trouble at work. I mean, luckily I had enough other stuff going for me that I was okay. But we can't pretend that everyone's just going to love it and you think, oh, that's great. Some people may call you the B word or not like your fierce energy. But what my self-compassion practice gave me is I like myself. I'm not dependent on other people liking me for my sense of self-worth. My sense of self-worth comes from the inside. My sense of self-worth comes from self-compassion, unconditional self-acceptance. And the more you can give yourself unconditional self-acceptance, the more you can take risks and not care so much about whether or not other people like you. Again, within reason. You don't want to alienate all your friends and family. You need wisdom in this. But yeah, there may be some backlash. And, I think if we're going to be agents of change, we have to be willing to take some backlash. And that's all I'll say on that topic. That's a lot.
Actually, I was going to ask you another question.
Feel free to add into this, Laila. I mean, my opinion isn't more valid than anyone else's. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was really beautiful. And you gave us so many examples of how to really take this into a societal way, into a cultural way, and make cultural changes, right? So what about if we kind of step back a little? What are some ways that we individually can empower our voices with balance of fierce and tender?
Yeah, well, so
they're really doing this in daily life.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of practices that I developed. It's in my book, Fierce Self-Compassion. We'll do some more in the 8-week protocol. But it does take some intention, right? Because again, we've been socialized just for the tender, and it can feel really uncomfortable. For instance, being comfortable with anger take some work. Being comfortable with this real powerful energy. Some people just, I think maybe for whatever reason, have a little more of one than the other. I do think we need to intentionally cultivate balance, but paying attention to it, asking yourself, what do I need right now? And actually, sometimes maybe we need to draw a boundary, or we need to say no, or we need to speak up. But if you don't ask yourself what you need, you'll never even begin to answer the question if you don't even ask it first.
Yeah. So
But there are things you can do, like
ourselves what
body
we need
posture.
first.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
body posture, touch,
Mhm.
words. If any words of like kind of strength came up from your fierce friend, you can cultivate words, encouragement. You might think, what would I say to my daughter if she said she was being picked on at school, right? Something like that. There are ways we can access this kind of mama bear energy, but we may have to do it a little intentionally.
And then, so asking ourselves, what would I say to my daughter? What would I say to someone I really care about? And then
Yes.
turning it and applying it to myself.
Yes, yes, because we do have access to mama bear. I mean, it's been socialized out of us, but there are contexts when you want to see a force of nature, you see a mother protecting her children, and that's kind of the one context when we've been allowed to keep this fierceness and we have access to it. And so in a way, self-compassion is the type of reparenting ourselves. And it's not just the tender nurturing. It is that, and it is also that fierce, powerful, protective energy as well. So, and again, this is whether or not we have actual children. This is just, I think, an energy that's, I think it's in all people, but because this is a gathering of women, I'm gonna talk about people who identify as women, because it is there in gender role socialization in that one specific context of mama bear. So it's something that we can have access to.
Yeah, and really apply it to our own selves individually.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
And could you speak to the different types of fierceness? For example, the motivating and so forth.
Yes. Well, so there are at least 3 types. There are probably a lot more. So tender self-compassion is more one energy because it's about acceptance. It's more like mindfulness. It's just kind of this accepting of ourselves and the present moment experience. Again, even if things need change, we have to accept the fact that it is the way it is, even if actually before we can make change. So that's more the stillness, the acceptance. But then the fierce energy is taking action. And so there's at least 3 ways, but again, there's probably infinite ways you can take action to alleviate suffering. So one is protection, drawing boundaries, saying no, standing up for yourself. One is meeting our own needs. So, my research, I find women have slightly less self-compassion than men, even though they've got more compassion than others than men. Because we've been told that we're only valuable if we sacrifice ourselves. A good woman sacrifices herself as if somehow our needs don't count. So taking action to meet our needs, not over others. It's not like being selfish. It's just saying, I count too. And as a matter of fact, I can't continue to give if I don't replenish my own needs as well. So meeting our own needs and then motivating change. Absolutely key. If we're going to alleviate suffering, there's a lot that needs to change. So again, we are unconditionally worthy of kindness, compassion, and concern as we are, broken, flawed, wherever we are, the mess that we are. And if we care, we're going to try to do what we can to help change things in a way that's healthier. Behaviors and situations, our intrinsic worth, it's intrinsically worthy. What can I say? If that makes sense.
Yeah. And we don't have to say I'm worthy because XYZ.
Exactly.
I am worthy, period.
Yeah. I'm not worthy because people like me or because I look a certain way or because I've achieved a certain thing, which most people actually, is very common. That's really more self-esteem. My self-esteem is dependent on being popular or looking a certain way or again, success. It's a fair weather friend. Self-esteem is a fair weather friend. This is an unconditional friend there for you in good times and in bad, and really who has your back, which also means saying no, drawing boundaries, and standing up for yourself.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. And I know there's been so many things popping up in the chat here.
And by the way, I would love women just to sit around in circles and just talk about this stuff because we all have experiences with what happens when you show your fierce side. How do people react? What's allowed, what's not allowed. This is a cultural conversation we need to be having.
I love what you just said. This is a cultural conversation we need to be having, but this is also something we can sit around our dining table. We can sit at the coffee shop and do.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Starting with me, but also our whole culture.
our friends,
And
or
that's how we
yeah.
do our change, right? Social change, personal
Yes.
change starts in community, starts with conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you starting this conversation for us today. This is really beautiful. And I know our time is up for this session, but I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you, Kristin. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And I know there's been so many people in the chat also offering their gratitude.
Yes, I wish I could look at all the comments and answer them all, but and thank you so much for gathering all the women on this call. It's just, again, it's really important that we come together in community.
Yeah, and I really want to thank you as well for doing the Fierce Compassion course. I think it's so absolutely needed. And all the ways that you've been a role model to so many of us. So thank you.
Well, what I can really model is being a mess.
Perfect.
If anyone like falls into the illusion that somehow I got all my, you know what together, don't fall into that trap. I'm still as much of a mess as I ever was, but I'm a compassionate mess, right? So I've learned to hold the failures and the mistakes and all of it with compassion, and it's enough. It really is enough.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Yeah. And that acceptance of being a compassionate mess, and I'm enough.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So
Wonderful.
I do need to go,
Thank
but
you so much.
have a wonderful retreat day. Thank you, Laila.